Hey friends, welcome back to the Bald Booktuber. My name is Scott. Yesterday we did a tour of my Kindle library and a few people watched that. So I thought today we would do a tour of my Audible library. As we all know, I am a massive audiobooker. I love to collect audiobooks, and I hope you enjoy this small tour of my audio library. Start off with my guy Andy, AR Witham. He, of course, had The Legend of Blackjack last year, one of the breakout novels from a debut author. We have some Tchaikovsky here, Children of Time and Shards of the Earth. I'll be adding to this collection at some point in time. We have some Alistair Reynolds, of course. Most of the Revelation Space stuff, I'm going to be doing at least the trilogy later this year, so I look forward to those. And John Lee is a fantastic narrator, so that is even better. Andy Weir is great. I, of course, love The Martian and Project Hail Mary, two of my favorite sci-fi books. Didn't like Artemis really at all, but I didn't finish it either, so who knows. Anne Leckie, Ancillary Justice, and that series is something that I'm very interested in. We'll get to that at some point potentially. We've got Anne Rice here, Interview with the Vampire, that's done by Simon Vance. That's a great recording. We got Anthony Doerr. I only have Cloud Cuckoo Land. He's got a couple of others. He's an author I want to get to this year, hopefully. Of course, we've got some Sherlock stuff, Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. Most of these are done by Simon Preble, who's great, but I also have some Stephen Fry and some Simon Vance. So some of these I just like to throw on occasionally for nostalgia and other reasons. Got, of course, Bernard Cornwell. So we, of course, have the Warlord Chronicles in here and also a lot of Sharp. I didn't buy the Sharp ones. They are just part of the premium library. So I have free access to those and can make those part of my library. Blake Crouch, his two big ones and my two favorites by him. We've got a lot of Brando Sando. I won't belabor it, but his Wheel of Time stuff gets categorized in here. We've got a couple versions of Elantris, including the dramatized version. I still need to finish that book at some point. All of the Mistborn stuff, all of the Stormlight Archive stuff, and Warbreaker. So, including a dramatized version of that. So, the graphic audio versions of those, which you can purchase with a single credit, which is nice. Brent Weeks, that series was not my favorite, but Paul Bamer is one of my favorite narrators, so, it's worth showing you. We've got Brian Lee Durfee. I can't wait till The Lonesome Crown is out on audio. I'm excited for that. That'll be May. Got some Brian Tracy stuff. He does a lot of nonfiction. Goals is one of my favorite books to just kind of reflect on and go back to time to time. C.S. Lewis, of course, a lot of the Narnia stuff, as well as Out of the Silent Planet, which I haven't read yet, which is part of a sci-fi trilogy. We have China Mieville. He does the new weird stuff. I tried Perdido Street Station a long time ago, and it didn't work for me. I want to try again. Chris Wooding has a couple things. I think this is the Ketty J series. There's a few more in that series. I'll try that at some point. Feels like it'd be fun. Christopher Buhlman does Between Two Fires and The Black Tongue Thief. I've heard good things about both. Of course, my boy Christopher Rocchio and all of his Sun Eater stuff by my guy Samuel Rukin, one of my absolute favorite narrators. This stuff's all awesome, of course. We do have some Carmack McCarthy. Blood Meridian didn't especially work for me, although I did like the narration. The Road was one of my favorite books last year, and that narration's great. We got Dan Simmons with the Hyperion Cantos, of course. We have, let's see, what should we do next? We'll scroll through some of these. We got Dennis Taylor with, again, the Bobaverse stuff. Ray Porter is the Man, one of my favorite narrators. These are all a lot of fun, as well as a couple other outside the Bobaverse stories here. And a lot of these I'm scrolling through I don't really own. They're just part of the library. Evan Winter, I didn't love The Rage of Dragons. I need to get to the other one. I do love that narration, though. Frank Herbert, of course, all of the Dune stuff. A lot of it is Scott Brick and or Simon Vance. But yeah, these are good, and I still need to get to more of Dune. Of course, we've got Gardner Dozois. He worked with Martin to do a lot of collaborations. I need to gather more of those. Frederick Bachman, the only one I own on audio is a man called Uva. The other ones I've gotten from the library. Gene Wolfe, of course, does Book of the New Sun, and I'm going through these right now, along with the physical copies. Of course, we have George, all of the A Song of Ice and Fire stuff, as well as some of the collaborations with Gardner Dozois. So, yeah, those are all great, of course. We've got Glenn Cook, some Black Company stuff. First book didn't really work for me, but I'll try again at some point. Guy Gavriel Kay, I'm slowly collecting all of his ebooks and all of his audiobooks, so I have a lot of those here. And a lot of it's Simon Vance, who is my boy. Ian C. Esselmont, one half of the Malazan duo, and a lot of his individual work here. We've got Tolkien, of course, you gotta have some Tolkien. I do have a couple different versions of some things, the English recordings, the circus recordings, and a dramatized BBC radio version featuring Sir Ian Holm, who of course played Bilbo in the movies. We've got Jack Campbell. He does the Lost Fleet series that I was having fun with last year, revisiting. I haven't listened to all of these, but a lot of them. In one of the sub-series, Mark Vitor does, and he is great also. But most of them are Christian Rummel, who is fantastic as well. Got, of course, the Jack Carr Terminal List series by my guy Ray Porter. He rules. This is all great. James Clavell. A lot of people are reading Shogun right now, and I'd love to. It just doesn't fit in. Ralph Lister does that narration. He's great. James S.A. Corey with The Expanse. Jefferson Mays is a pretty good narrator. I've enjoyed what I've listened to so far. So that's a series I need to prioritize at some point. Jim Butcher, of course. Dresden Files by my guy James Marsters. And Codex Alera by not my person, Kate Redding. Definitely not my favorite, but that's all right. I think somewhere hidden in here, Aeronauts Windless is there. There it is. And I don't know who does that narration. Jim Collins, I like his nonfiction, especially the good to great stuff. I think I'm missing a book or two in there. I'll get them at some point. Joe Abercrombie, of course, all of the First Law and Shattered Sea stuff. Simon Pacey does the First Law stuff, as well as I've got the Michael Page recordings for the standalones as well, because those were recorded and then Pacey went back and re-recorded them. So both are quite good. John C. Maxwell, someone I've been reading, since my early 20s, a lot of teamwork and leadership type of books. He narrates many of them himself. So here we have John Grisham stuff. A lot of it's done by Frank Moeller, the late, great Frank Moeller, which is fantastic. John Gwynn, I have all his stuff, obviously, as well. Here we got Josiah Bancroft with the Senlin Ascend stuff. I may get to this series at some point in time. Got Ken Liu. I got 2 of the 4 of the Dandelion Dynasty. I'll grab the others at some point. Michael Kramer does the narrations. Not my favorite. Larry Correa here. I've got his Forgotten Saga, or whatever it is, series with Tim Gerard Reynolds. I need to get to that. Got Lois McMaster Bujold here. Again, most of these are part of the premium library, so I didn't spend anything on them. But the Five Gods series are ones that I actually own, starting with The Curse of the Chalion. The other ones are Verkosigan Saga that were part of the library for free. Malcolm Gladwell, my favorite nonfiction writer, he does his own narration, and it's high-quality stuff, podcast quality. Mark Greaney, of course, the Gray Man series. We have all that with Jay Snyder, who is perfect for that series. I'm having fun going through that slowly over time. Mark Lawrence, I own most of his stuff and haven't gotten to it yet. At some point, I will definitely make it a priority. This Marco Cluse, I own in both ebook and audiobook form. This is a military sci-fi series I have a lot of interest in, and all that stuff was cheap, so I grabbed it. Scroll through here. Of course, Melissa McPhail with the Shadow and Light series, and the 5 books in it. They're done by Nick Podell, who's great. Michael Crichton, of course, is amazing. Takes me back to my teen years. And Scott Brick does a lot of his work, and Scott Brick's all right. We got Michael J. Sullivan, and Tim Gerard Reynolds does pretty much all of his stuff. I've only listened to a couple things, but I've been collecting these over time as well. The Michael Moorcock stuff, I've got 2 of the 4 collections. I'll grab the others. They're, of course, done by Samuel Rukin, who is amazing. Yeah, Neil Gaiman, a few of his works. He's got Elric of Melniboné in here because he did the prologue or whatever, the dedication. We got Nicholas Eames, The Band, the first book of 2. Patrick Rothfuss, of course, we have that whole series, even though Slow Regard is not my favorite thing in the world by a lot. The other 2 are, and done by the great Nick Podell. Of course, we've got all the Lightbringer stuff, as well as he's got Pierce Brosnan as a story in that Star Wars collection. Those are done by Tim Gerard Reynolds. We have R.F. Kuang. She also has a story in that Star Wars universe, as well as Poppy War stuff. We got R. Scott Baker. I'll be reading all of these this year. That's the second Apocalypse, and it's narrated by 2 different people, neither of which I know. R.R. Verde, I'll get to his story at some point in time. We got Richard Nell, the Ash and Sand trilogy there, done by Ralph Lister, who's great. Robert E. Howard, I started listening to that audiobook, and it's quite good, and I love his writing. I just haven't gotten around back to it yet. Robert Jordan, of course, we got all the Wheel of Time stuff, and I have 2 different recordings for The Eye of the World, including the most recent one by Rosamund Pike, who went back and re-recorded it. Not sure if she'll do the rest of the series. Robert McCammon is split into 2 sections here. Robert McCammon, Robert R. McCammon. Oops. Robert R. McCammon. So I'll show you both, but I have a fair amount of his stuff, either from the library itself on here, the premium Audible Library, or I've outright purchased it because I love Robert McCammon. Obviously, Queen Hob, everything. Everything. And the recordings, of course, are of various quality. Some of my favorite narrators, some of my least favorite. So it's a mixed bag. Ryan Cahill, his series looks interesting to me. It's self-pub. I may get to it at some point. Obviously, Scott Lynch, The Gentleman Bastard, sequence by Michael Page, who is great. Simon R. Green does the Nightside series, which is a lot of fun. And when I got these, and I'm glad I got them when I got them, Mark Vitor did the recordings. You can't get these Vitor recordings anymore. They've been re-recorded by a different narrator, which is kind of a bummer, because he's great for that series. Stephen Arian's an author I want to get to for sure. He's got, I think, 8 or 9 books out at this point. Stephen Brust is one I mentioned recently. I picked up his first one in his Vlad Taltos series because it was like $2.99. Obviously, all the Erickson stuff, or most of it anyway. Book of the Fallen, the Carcanis trilogy, 2 of the 3 there, and then The God Is Not Willing of the new trilogy. Susanna Clark, I've got her 2 books. I'll get to those. Tad Williams, I have a fair amount of stuff from the Otherland series and the stuff in Memory, Sorrow, and Thorn and the follow-up series. Terry Brooks, I actually have less than I thought I did here, although I have listened to The Voyage of the Gerald Shannara trilogy quite a few times, and it's quite good. Tiago Abdallah, I've got some friends that are reading that right now. Self-pub, and it's supposed to be great. And then Timothy Zahn here does a ton of Star Wars stuff, and most of these are narrated by Mark Thompson, who is fantastic. Hope you've enjoyed it, friends. As always, publication order always, my friends.